Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. We're so glad you could attend. Come inside, come inside. There behind the glass stands a real blade of grass. Be careful as you pass. Move along, move along. Come inside, the show's about to start.
Welcome to the first edition of the Minority Report, brought to you by the House Republican Caucus. Today we're going to talk about recent audits in state government that revealed tens of millions of dollars in mismanaged funds, and also the need for transparency in our state government. With us today we have Delegate John Cluster from Baltimore County, Delegate Mike McDermott from the Eastern Shore, and Delegate Warren Miller from Howard County. Thank you all for being here today. You and the Republican Caucus are going to be calling for audits of all of the state agencies in Maryland. Will you tell us a little bit about why you want to do that and why it's important?
Well, the first thing that we need to do is call for an audit of every state agency at the same time. As somebody that was in the state government back in 2003, what we found was these audits, the auditors are great people, they do a great job, but they're limited in scope when they come, and they just don't have the personnel to do all of it that they need to do and do all the agencies at the same time. And what we find, and we're finding it lately, I mean, you can refer to some of the local papers and some of the Maryland papers, is that there's millions of unspent funds being sent back to the general fund. What we're spending them on, I don't know, but I can recall at least one that was $27 million from a bill that we passed last year that was from taxes that was unspent and sat in the coffers. Also, there's a lot of, it seems like a lot of pay-for-play issues where they're awarding contracts and in return they're getting things in return, or people are doing things with the contracts. Particular people within state agencies are doing things with the contracts that aren't supposed to be doing because of the way the business as usual is going on in the state of Maryland.
Well, some people might be a little concerned about the cost of doing these audits. So do you want to tell us about these audit recovery specialists and how that works and how it would be different from what legislative services does?
Right. Like I said, legislative services is a great group of people and they're paid. But what these independent auditors do, they'll do the entire state audit for you. And whatever money is saved, then they get a percentage of that. So it's not really costing the state anything to do these audits. I mean, it's a great concept. These companies will come in, they're independent auditors, and they have the amount of people that we need to do it. And then any money savings, they'll get a small percentage of it. And I think it's a great idea. The state's going to save money, and these companies, we're going to put people to work.
Well, thank you, and we look forward to hearing more on this idea.
Thank you very much.
Delegate McDermott, thank you for being here today. I know that you have been working on some legislation that ties in directly with this audit process that we were just speaking of. Do you want to tell us more about your legislative efforts?
Sure, Jeannie. You know, we've been working with John Cluster, and we came to the same conclusion. I think a lot of the Republicans reached the conclusion that the state of Maryland was simply mishandling their funds. We had the audit that John referred to, and it was actually $33 million that was basically lost in a budget for the Department of Disabilities. And you know, these are the people who need the money the most. You talk about a $33 million, lost funds somewhere for people that are so desperate for the money that they asked for an alcohol tax last year. And this government moved forward, did that tax, and then proceeded to not spend the money. And it's really an outrage. We found $66 million in the state highway user funds. And when you're talking about highways, our municipalities are suffering, our counties are suffering. For the state agency to have $66 million that they didn't know they had, and for our auditors to find it, how much more is out there that we don't know about? And that's why the bill that we're proposing will audit the state every 2 years through independent audit. And that independent audit, like Delegate Cluster mentioned, it will be paid for through the commission that they would receive as a result of the audit. It'll be performed for the preceding 24 months. We propose the next audit would actually begin in July 1st of this year. And then it would follow for the next 2 years. We would give the auditors 6 months to give a final report that would be due prior to the next session. So at least when we come in here, we would know realistically what the budget numbers look like because we would have the report from the independent auditors. Right now, the state's auditing, on a fixed schedule of every few years, taking a couple of agencies at a time, and it's almost like getting a tax assessment done that way. You don't have a whole picture of what the money looks like in the state of Maryland. So we're hoping that through this process we'll be able to eliminate that problem.
Well, I think that's certainly a great idea, and you're absolutely right. Having real-time information can help us make better decisions about our budgeting process. And I know you're leading a work group, and you guys have some other ideas about what we can do in terms of transparency.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, one of the things that Abraham Lincoln talked about, the government, you can't govern people unless it's by their consent. And part of having consent of the governed is for the people to trust the fact that what the government's trying to accomplish is open and honest and straightforward. They do not expect us to lose hundreds of millions of dollars of their hard-earned money up here in Annapolis. And part of our work group is going to center on what we call G-squared things, or good government themes. In the upcoming weeks, we're going to work on a legislative agenda for these good government bills. We're going to identify them and hold press conferences on a weekly basis where we have companion bills that we can say to the public, this is a good government bill. This is a game changer in Annapolis. If you pass this bill, it will make government better. And likewise, we're also going to contrast that with what we consider to be bad government bills. Bills that obscure the government, bills that make people wonder exactly what's going on, hidden taxes, hidden agendas, hidden fees that we find out about 6 months after a budget is passed. That is not good government. That's not what the people sent us here to do. It's not what the Republican and the minority party here in this caucus represent. And we want to see these G2 principles. We want to see government square. We want to see these G2 principles move forward, and we want to have the support not only of the caucus, but the support of the entire House to see good government advance in Annapolis.
Great. Well, we thank you for your hard work. We know you're going to be busy trying to get those things accomplished, and we look forward to talking with you again and getting an update sometime in the near future.
Thank you, Delegate.
Here, Delegate Miller, you know, I was just talking with Delegate McDermott about some good government bills, and I know that you have a couple of examples of those types of bills that you're going to be working on this session, and I was hoping you could share with us what those bills will do and why you decided to introduce them.
Sure. Thank you, Jeannie. I want to start by saying in 2008, I was fortunate enough to get a bill passed that deals with funding transparency. Most Marylanders are aware that we have a state budget, but if you ask them to tell you anything about the budget, they would be unsure of what it is. I have one in front of me, and it's roughly the size of 2 telephone books. You can read through this entire budget and you have no idea how the state's spending your tax dollars. And so our website that we created, spending.dbm.maryland.gov, allows the average citizen to go in and see who's winning state contracts, grants and loans, and to use that information for their businesses. So in other words, if you want to sell something to the state, you can see what other vendors are getting, and that allows for competition, that allows for cost savings, and that's very important. I think Maryland does okay with transparency, but there's a lot more that needs to be done. I'm excited that we have these work groups we've created. I think the effort has stagnated since the law was passed in 2008, and I fault the governor's office and the transparency task force that was created in the House and Senate for not looking at more, because I think the more information our taxpayers get, our citizens get, the better.
Now, you also, having been in the legislature for a while, have been through many years and many budgets, and I think that we have seen a shift in the way our governor has done his budget. We have a very executive-driven budget in our state, but we're noticing some key differences, and I wondered if you cared to comment on that.
I would characterize this as the most dishonest budget by any governor yet to date in my experience, and I say that because traditionally the governor is very straightforward with his budget bill. This year, through a gimmick, a bill called the BRFA bill, the governor is coming in and setting new spending policies. They won't get the purview a bill would get in the legislature, so if it was a tax increase or a new spending priority, typically that's a bill, or that's a part of the budget. But through this BRFA bill, we'll all only get one vote to say yes or no. And in that BRFA bill, we have drastic tax increases for Marylanders. People will see their income taxes rise because of the governor's BRFA bill. People will see gas taxes rise. The governor characterized that in the State of the State as a removal of an exemption from gasoline tax, and he's going to start applying that tax. Well, in layman's terms, that's a tax increase. You'll pay more for your gas next year than you do this year because of our governor. So we're hoping through transparency and other initiatives. The other bill that I have that I'm excited about, I'd like to create a statewide office, the Office of the Inspector General, That's not normal for a Republican to want more bureaucracy, but I hope through the cost savings of an elected inspector general, we'd actually pay for that office, and they would be able to do more with legislative audits than what currently happens. The legislature year after year releases audits, but nothing's ever done about the findings to save our taxpayers' money. So,
well, I think you make a really good point about the policy setting that's going on through the BRFA bill. And I think it's important for our viewers to know the process, like how much time is spent on the BRFA bill versus a policy bill that would be introduced in a policy committee and have a hearing, for example.
yeah, I mean, the BRFA bill is going to get maybe a week before we see it come out with the budget. You know, policy bill might take the full 90 days. We might not see it come out of a committee till near the very end of the legislative process. And 90 days of scrutiny is a heck of a lot better, especially by two bodies, than what we're going to see with this BRFA bill. We're going to see a very streamlined process. They're going to try to cram this down our throats, and we're going to have very few opportunities to fight some of those bad ideas that are in that bill.
Well, thank you again for being here. Thank you for the legislation that you've worked on in the past and the bills you're putting in this session. And we hope that they pass, and we look forward to a report on how those bills are doing.
Thank you.
To our viewers, we want to say thank you for tuning in, and we hope that you will watch the next edition of the Minority Report, brought to you by the Maryland House Republican Caucus.